There is a part of you that you have been taught to fear. It is the part that hungers for more, the part that whispers no when the world demands you say yes. It's the flash of heat when you are disrespected, the sharp glow of your ambition, the wild, untamed energy that knows exactly what it wants. It is the fire inside you, and from a very young age, you were handed a bucket of water and told to keep it under control. You were taught that this fire was dangerous, that its heat was aggression, its ambition was selfish, its hunger was unevolved. You were taught to be a good person, and in your mind, good came to mean a dying ember. So you smothered the fire. You learned to be polite, to be accommodating, to shrink. And you created a life of quiet safety. But have you ever stopped to ask, are you truly at peace, or are you just cold? Because there is a profound difference between a controlled hearth and a pile of ash. This video is not about letting a wildfire rage. It is about having the courage to finally learn how to tend to, understand, and master the most powerful part of yourself. It is about turning the fire you fear into the light that guides you. Part 1. The smothered fire, diagnosing your fear. The first step is to understand what this smothered fire truly is. It is not your enemy. It is the seat of your most powerful, suppressed emotions. When you douse the fire, you don't eliminate these emotions. You just ensure they express themselves in unhealthy ways. Your righteous anger doesn't disappear. It turns inward and becomes depression. Your burning ambition doesn't vanish. It curdles into quiet resentment. The no you were afraid to say becomes a seed of bitterness that poisons your relationships. Think of a graphic designer named Emily. She is talented, kind, and incredibly accommodating. A colleague, Mark, begins to take credit for her ideas in meetings. Emily feels a hot flash of anger. The fire flares, but she immediately suppresses it. She fears confrontation. She fears being seen as not nice. So she says nothing. The result? The fire doesn't go away. It smolders. She begins to resent Mark. She starts to hate her job. Her creative energy cools. She feels powerless. Her fear of the fire's heat has allowed her entire creative spirit to grow cold. As the writer Anais Nin beautifully put it, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. The great psychologist Carl Jung knew this was the danger of the shadow self. He taught that you cannot become whole by pretending half of you doesn't exist, writing, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You must have the courage to face your own fire. Part 2. Understanding the fire, the integration process. So how do we make the darkness conscious? How do we begin to understand the fire we have smothered? You don't fight it. You don't fear it. You study it. You learn its nature. First, understand that your fear is a compass. The situations that trigger your deepest fear are not random. Your fear is a compass, pointing directly to where your fire has been most deeply suppressed. If you have a deep fear of public speaking, your fear is pointing to your suppressed fire for having a voice. If you fear confrontation, your fear is pointing to your need to use your fire to forge stronger boundaries. The fire is not the fear itself. The fire is the power you've been afraid to claim. The fear is just the compass showing you where that power is buried. As the great Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." We suffer from the imagined horror of what the fire might do if it rages, and so we never get to experience the reality of its warmth and light. Second, understand that your anger is information. We are taught that anger is a destructive, negative emotion. But the philosopher Aristotle argued that anger is a virtue when felt correctly. He said anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person and to the right degree and at the right time and for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power and is not easy. Your anger is not a flaw. It is a signal. The inner fire flares when a value has been violated. Let's return to Emily, the designer. She decides to listen to her anger. Why does the fire flare? Because my work was stolen and my value of fairness was violated. The anger is just information. This clarity transforms her. She doesn't explode at Mark. That would be an untrained wildfire. Instead, she uses the energy from her anger to do something disciplined, preparing a documented case for her manager. She has used her fire not to burn, but to forge. To embrace these chaotic emotions is to embrace the raw material of creation itself. As Friedrich Nietzsche declared, one must have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Part 3. Walking with the fire, the state of a master. When you learn to understand the fire, you can finally give it oxygen, not to let it rage wildly, but to have it burn beside you as a disciplined, powerful, and warming hearth. This is the state of the integrated human being. This is true strength. What does this look like? You are still kind, but your kindness now has warmth. You are still compassionate, but you no longer tolerate disrespect. You are still gentle, but everyone in the room knows that you are not cold. The philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. While this sounds dark, the deeper wisdom is about respect. But there is a higher level of power beyond just mastering others. As the Taoist sage Lao Tzu taught, mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. This true power is not about being feared or loved. It is about being whole. Emily, now a senior designer, is in a meeting where a junior colleague is being unfairly criticized. The old, cold ember, Emily, would have stayed silent. But she is no longer afraid of her own heat. She calmly interjects, defending her colleague's work with clear, firm logic. She is not aggressive. She is a formidable presence, using her fire to provide warmth and protection. At that moment, she is respected. She has become a good person who is no longer harmless. She embodies the words of the modern philosopher Jordan Peterson. A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. For too long, you have been at war with your own strength. You feared your own ambition. You were ashamed of your own anger. You apologized for your own power. You have now walked to the edge of that fear and met the fire you were taught to smother. But reclaiming it is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of your true responsibility. A wildfire burns without purpose. It consumes. But a forge takes that same chaotic heat and, with immense discipline, uses it to create things of strength and beauty. The most profound question, then, is not, do you have fire? It is, what will you build with it? Will your anger be the fire that only burns you from the inside out with resentment? Or will it be the forge that creates unbreakable boundaries and defends those who cannot defend themselves? Will your ambition be the wildfire that clears the field for your own gain? Or will it be the hearth that provides warmth and light for your entire community? The world does not fear fire. It fears a fire with no purpose. To become what you fear, is to finally accept the terrifying and beautiful responsibility of your own power. Your fire is now in your hands. What will you forge?